Good evening, good people. This is Dilys. How are you doing? Welcome to another episode of Speak with Dilys. I hope you're well. I hope you are excited to be here this evening. So I will do what I always do, which is to introduce myself and let you know who you're speaking to, just in case you don't know, or in case you stumble across this broadcast on the replay, which does happen. So good evening, good people. The name is Dilys, and this is Speak with Dilys. Today's episode is called Dark Innocence. So I'm going to go through all the boring bits and I'm going to tell you where we are at the moment. So this show was created to create a safe space for people to have conversations that they would not normally have. That is the essence of this show, to have conversation that we wouldn't normally have. Faye Clinton, thank you for joining, because I've just seen your name pop up there. And actually, let me go on here so that I can see who is joining and see your comments a little bit better. Excellent. See how I can do that. And I'm on. Let me just go on silence here, and we should be good. Guys, as you join, please do share. Brilliant. Hi, Teresa. How are you doing? Anne, how are you doing? And Evelyn as well. Lovely to have you on here. So, guys. And Monica as well. So yes, so Speak with Dilys, created to create safe space for people to have open and honest conversations that they would not normally be able to have in a respectful and supportive space. And that is why I love doing this show. So, you know, it's really great to be here every Sunday, 8 o'clock. I'm on here, normally bang on time. I'm having a little bit of an issue at the moment. I was having some technical issues, and I'm waiting for my guest to come on. But if anything happens, if it doesn't happen, you know me, we will still have an amazing show and we will still have the conversations that we need to have. So yes, I hope you guys are all good. Let me know who is watching and where you're watching from. Do share the broadcast. Let me know what's happening. Let me know how you're feeling. I know Monica's on. I know Faye is on. Rudolph, how are you doing? I don't think you've ever seen my show before, so I hope you enjoy it. I think that's all I can see at the moment. So yeah, guys, as you join, please do share as well. And let me know what your thoughts are on today's show. As I said, my guest should be here. We just spoke about 25 minutes ago, and then I can't seem to get her on here. But like I said, Ruda says, I'm watching all of it today. Well, let's hope my guest comes on, because I don't know what has happened. Let me just keep checking my messages. Yeah, I don't know what's happened, but you know what? We will do what we have to do. This would be a first for me, I can tell you that. But it's all good. So today's show, we are supposed to be speaking about Jane Bodie, her story of being a child that was subjected to sexual abuse, went into life of prostitution, drugs, and is now, you know, landed very much on her feet. And, you know, it's not a story that is particularly easy to tell. So let's see what happens, because it's 6 minutes past 8 here, so I don't know what's happening. But like I said, these things do happen. So I am quite happy to keep rolling with it and just doing what I do best, and which is doing my show. So whatever happens is all good. But what I think I will do is talk about the issues that I would have probably spoken about next week, because normally the format of this show now for this series, because obviously it has changed quite a lot, is to have my guest on, and then the following week we discuss the issues that was raised through that particular episode, and gives you an opportunity, you know, to speak as well. So if Jane is not able to come on to tell the story herself, then the little that I know, I will speak on her behalf, and yeah, we'll just do what we gotta do. So how is everybody feeling? Let me not forget my manners. Let me know how everyone's feeling. So put your comments in the box. Let me see. And if you're feeling good, give me a heart. Give me some hearts. If you're not feeling too good, tell me why, and I'll try and you know, show you some love. So please do share as you watch, and let's get this party started. So Rudolph, I hope you enjoy the show today. We are all feeling good. That's brilliant. How's your little boy and your little fufu situation? Did you try the recipe that I recommended, or did you end up just buying him like fish and chips and keeping him happy? So yeah, Rudolph has a little boy that wanted to eat some Ghanaian food, and because he's vegetarian, he couldn't give him what we would normally eat. So yeah, I was just inquiring whether he was able to pull it off, because that's no mean feat. Monica, how are you doing? How is life? Well, from your emoji, I take it they didn't go very well. So let me carry on introducing myself while you guys put in the comment box how you're feeling, and inviting people and telling me where you're watching from. So once again, for those of you that don't know who I am and who are going to watch this, on the replay or for the very first time, my name is Dilys, and I created this show, Speak with Dilys, to create safe spaces for people to be able to have conversations that are not normally had, but in a safe environment and a supportive environment at that. Now, 1 second. Now, my guest is calling. Hi, Jane. I'm not going to put you on speaker. Are you able to come on? All right, my love. Do you want me to send you the link again? Okay, love. So we're just having some technical problems, but Jane will be on. Don't worry. So let me try and get her on here. So yes, we've just had some problems, but you know what? These things happen. It does happen. So I'm not worried. So if we go a little bit over, just bear with me. I always try to give you a little extra. So where it says invite guests, I'm just going to copy that. Right. So bear with me. I'm just going to, it's the same link, but I don't know why it's doing that. Oh, dear Lord, dear Lord. Help me, please. So yeah, this is what happens. Sorry, let me go with that. This is just life. So guys, just bear with me. So you're seeing two of me on the screen. Don't worry about that. Ooh. It's worked. I can see Jane. Lovely jubbly. Hold on a second. Oh, wonderful, Jane. Well, you perch there now that I know that you're there and we're all rocking and rolling. That's brilliant. And I will just finish doing the boring bits. So guys, if you're catching this on the replay, so rewind. This is life. It happens. So I'm sure you guys are not going to be too upset with me. Hi, Shirley. Thank you for joining, and Afolabi as well. And Monica, I'm glad to hear that you're doing great. So yes, so my name is Dilys. I am the host of Speak with Dilys. And very quickly, these are the things I do. I'm the best-selling author of the book, Not This Widow. I'm also the author of the book, Predator or Prince, How to Find the Man of Your Dreams and Not Your Nightmares. I am a minister at New Glory Ministry in Romford. I am an event host. I'm a qualified and accredited life coach. And I'm a generally all nice, really nice person, if you catch me on a good day. So yeah, those are some of the things that I do. If I think of anything else, I will let you know. But for now, I would really like to just concentrate on the wonderful guest that I've got coming on by the name of Jane Bodie. And I'm going to ask Jane if I'm actually pronouncing her name properly, because one thing I hate is people mispronouncing names. And I normally will ask before I have the person come on the show. So I'm just going to quickly get my notes up. And once I have done that, I shall call the very lovely Jane to come on here. And we're going to have a conversation. Right. Jane, I'm just bringing you on and adding you now. Hi, Jane. How are you doing?
Hi. Not bad. Better. You?
We got there in the end.
I know. I don't know what was going on. The link wouldn't work.
Do you know what? I was not worried, but I just thought, you know what? Knowing my luck, I'll have to do this show on my own. So I thought it's fine. So right, let me just pull this forward a little bit so that you can see me. So guys, we are all good, I'm sure. You can everybody see and hear us okay? If you can, show me some love. Give me a thumbs up so that I can see. Guys, you need to share the link and let people join us. It would be great if you could do that. So, oh, thank you, Rudolph. Right. So I'm going to, so those of you that don't know what today's show is about, I am going to just quickly tell you, and then we are going to get through it. Okay. So what I have put out there is childhood is where happy memories are supposed to be created. Childhood is supposed to be safe. But what happens when your voice is taken? When your voice is taken over by all the adults that are supposed to protect you, and you hear the word and can't hear the words you can't speak. Jane Bodie is the author behind the best-selling book, Can't Anyone Help Me? A profound story detailing abuse at the hands of her uncle, propelling her into a life of drugs, prostitution, and a battle with mental health. Why can't we see when the child is hurting? If we really knew the reasons why people appear broken, what would we do to change their world? Dark Innocence is the 7th episode of Series 6 of Speak with Dilys. And I have with me the lovely Jane Bodie. Jane, please tell me I'm pronouncing your surname correctly.
Bodie. Yeah.
It is Bodie. Good.
Bodie.
Excellent. Well, it's lovely to have you. And, you know, it's funny how you connect with people, because many times when I'm doing this show, I say to people, oh, I'm doing today's episode on X because I saw something on social media, or I was having a conversation with somebody and it just made me think, right, this is what I need to talk about. So it's very spontaneous. I don't ever plan like week 1, week 2. I don't ever do that. And we just literally met.
Random.
Was it like a week ago?
Yeah, very random connection.
It was very random. Just basically we were on somebody's mutual friend's page.
Yeah.
And it was a story of a young girl.
I think it was around a young girl that got pregnant, and
that was it.
Yeah.
And then there were the comments.
The comments on there. I don't normally get involved, but I thought, yeah, it wasn't very nice.
It wasn't.
You saw that. And you saw
you
that.
Know me.
And you jumped in just to say, you know, what I was saying is absolutely
correct. And then it went downhill from there.
Yeah.
Rapidly. I was just letting them have it. And essentially what that conversation was about was it was judging this young girl to basically assume that she was promiscuous and had nothing better to do with her time than just to get pregnant because she wanted to get a council property.
Get a free house that doesn't exist.
I'm like, this is 2022. That the ability to just get council houses willy-nilly probably stopped about 30, 40 years ago.
Which is what I was saying to these comments. Yeah.
It was just not good. And then that's when I believe that we started getting into a whole, you know, conversation. And then I think I friend requested you and then I inboxed you to have a bit of a rant on the nonsense that had just gone on. And then we just got on the phone and started talking. I'm like, this is an amazing woman. And you started to share with me your journey. So I will leave you to introduce yourself a little bit more of, you know, what you do currently and just a brief outline of, you know, of your past, really.
Yes. So I hope everybody understands the accent because it's quite broad Yorkshire, but
I understand it.
I did write a book about going on 11 years maybe. And it's at the time I did it for therapeutic reasons because all the memories were so jumbled up. I just wanted a start, a middle and an end. And doing the book gave me that kind of start, middle and end. And it was very therapeutic just to everything was so jumbled, but, you know, to put it into some kind of order. I think that helps quite a lot because the memories are all segmented. So doing that, that's why one of the reasons why I did it, and to raise awareness of abuse. And my situation wasn't the stereotypical situation that most people think abuse happens in. So I came from a family that was fairly wealthy, middle class, and I wanted to show that actually this doesn't just happen to poor families in deprived areas, etc., etc. And because I came from that background, people really didn't see it, didn't spot the signs. And I mean, it happens from any background, but You know, it was always, well, you've got a lovely home, a lovely house, lovely parents,
Yeah.
lots of money. So why do you act this way? Yeah. Why are
And
you
I
acting
think,
this way?
I think that's where our conversation started, and why I said, you know what, I really need us to speak about this, because we seem to have this very archaic definition of what abuse looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you're from certain backgrounds, so I don't even know where to start, because for me, it's just so much. I mean, when we spoke, I was like, this is the problem. People look at a child, and I know this conversation is going to go in many different dimensions, but one of the main things that troubled me, because I'd had a conversation just a few days prior about discipline. So I'd shared with somebody very close to me a video of a child of, I think, 3, who was in nursery, and the nursery teacher had said to the child, I mean, I shouldn't laugh, but had said to the child, had said to everybody, all the kids, you know, let's all do whatever, whatever. And all you hear is this little kid shout, shut the F up. And there's this stunned silence. And then the teacher grabs the child and says, no, the teacher says, we're not going to speak like that. And it was like, shut the F up, B word.
Yeah, a learned behaviour. That is
Exactly.
a learned behaviour.
And I said, a child 3, 4 isn't able to articulate, or isn't able to tell themselves that this is not a said word. All they know is that, oh, that word gets attention, or that word is said in these scenarios. And so I too am going to say it. And that's normal for any child. Guys, if you're watching this, as soon as you jump on, please do share and put where you're watching from. And I will get to you and give you a personal greeting any second, you know, from now. But please do share this broadcast. And the conversation that I had went on to explain that children can only express themselves through their behavior. They can't say to you, well, hey, mum, hey, dad, well, you know, for the last 10 years, this is what has been happening to me. It just doesn't happen.
No.
So 9 times out of 10, your child will manifest their behavior, manifest what they're going through in their behavior, whether it's misbehavior or whether it's self-harming. Whatever it is, it's out there to say, can you see me? I'm suffering and I need somebody to advocate on my behalf. But when you come from certain cultures, so yours was quite different. Yours was the fact that you were white, middle class, came from an affluent family, your parents were wealthy.
There couldn't be anything bad happening in that.
Yeah. You know, you live an ideal life. You're living like Cinderella. How could there possibly be anything wrong with Jane? Jane is just a bad child. So take me to that place of you being that bad child. What was the reason for it? And how was that manifesting for you in your childhood?
So from as long as I can remember, and I've got a few of the letters and documents that was written back when I was a child by psychiatrists. But from the age of 5, I was referred to psychiatry due to my behaviour. So I can't remember much back then, but I think now I know that I must have suffered from extreme anxiety, panic attack, and I acted out. So I wouldn't like being in the classroom. I wouldn't sit in the classroom. So I would run away. I would run out. I would try and escape the school. So you had to lock the school gates all the time because I would just run away. Because the feeling of being trapped to me was triggering the anxiety. So all these behaviours then led.
Oh, so you mean being in the enclosed space in a classroom?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
So that then would trigger some panic in me. Obviously, at that age, you can't relate it to anything. You don't understand what's going on. You know, it's like the fight. I think it's the fight or flight situation. So
how old are you around this time?
5, 6.
That's small.
Yeah, when I started school.
Wow.
So, you know, being trapped was a trigger, and I just kept running out of the classroom. Teachers kept pulling me back. I was physically struggling with them. They had to lock the gates. They had to have somebody with me because I'd jump over the wall and escape, etc., etc. And it was, I think now, looking back, it was the flight response, because I felt scared, but I wasn't sure what I was scared of. So it's a trigger, basically. And that behaviour led, and also I didn't eat. I used to like be sick whenever I had food. So these behaviours led me to being referred to psychology and psychiatry.
And nobody thought that something gravely wrong. It was just, she's just bad and unruly.
Yeah, exactly. Me, I just had bad behaviours and there was no reason for them. So what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? The amount of times I got asked that question. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was 5 or 6, 7, 8. You know, how can you know what is wrong with you? You just know how you feel. You know.
And this is why I believe I've had this conversation before, where I said we need to stop asking people what's wrong with them and start asking people what happened to them. Because if somebody has said, Jane, what happened? Then you will be able to say, well, or possibly
if they'd have asked me in the correct way, probably when I was that age, because you don't have the words.
You don't.
When you are
5, you never have the words.
6, you don't physically have the words to explain what's going on.
Yeah.
You know? So
and this is what I really see. Yeah, sorry, Jane, go on.
It's your communication is your behaviour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I think we need to drum into parents, because from where I'm from, like being African, there is no soft parenting.
Yeah.
It's about respect.
Yeah.
You are either a respectful child or a disrespectful child.
Yeah.
You are either a good child or you're a bad child. And the way our system is structured, it's very much a performance and reward system. So if you perform, then you're rewarded and you're loved. If you don't perform, you are bad, you are categorized, and you're written off. And it troubles me so much how we think. I mean, if you look on any social media platform where there's a child or black child misbehaving, you will definitely see predominantly in the comments how that child needs to have their ass whooped. And that is the answer to every misbehavior. Nobody stops and thinks, does the child even have a mental health issue?
Yeah.
But in our case now, we are talking of, this is a child that is being sexually abused and doesn't have the words to describe what's going on. And that must have been just terrible.
Oh, yeah. And in the end, after years and years of that, you actually start to believe you are bad.
Yeah.
You know, because you're being told it over and over. So then you just believe you are bad. Everybody thinks that about you. So that's it. You are bad.
Yeah. And I think words are powerful when we're dealing with children. It's like I was saying to somebody that don't ever tell your child they're bad. Address their behavior. Your behavior is unacceptable. Not you are unacceptable, or you don't do X, or however it needs to be said. Separate the act from the child. And you're right. If a child keeps hearing every day that they're bad, then they'll be like, well, there's no point me trying to be good.
No.
And, you know, but tell me, what was the abuse that happened? And why was it so difficult for people to accept that you were being abused?
I think it just didn't enter the heads. We're talking the 70s and the 80s. And back then, you know, abuse just wasn't spoke about. It didn't enter anybody's head. But I don't think it's much better now, to be honest. But it wasn't something that they would have recognised. So, I mean, I've got, like I said, I've got some letters here from psychiatry, some reports. And in the reports, I mean, they mention about the number of thrush infections I had, the number of throat infections I had. And this is psychiatry actually writing this.
And how old were you at this time?
Let me just have a quick look. So This is one where I became very ill at the age of 12, and I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. But the psychiatrist has wrote here somewhere. I was 12. The difficulties I've had from the age of 5, and very anxious. I'm just reading through it. Difficulties socializing, underachieving, and it mentions how I have reoccurrent a history of throat infections and thrush, and this is all mentioned.
And yet still they didn't twig.
Yeah, they don't ask why. So all this would raise alarm bells to me.
If I had a child, if a friend said to me that their child from the age of 5 for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, for 7 years keeps getting recurring thrush at that age, alarm bells will start ringing. There'll be sirens going off.
Yeah, and it wasn't. And again, they just labelled me as bad and mental, and put me in a adult psychiatric ward, which
at the age of 12.
Yeah, which was horrendous.
Wow.
So that did not help. That was probably the worst thing they could have done.
Yeah. And it's that feeling of isolation, because where do you go if the adults can't advocate for you, and parents, as you're watching this, and this is why I do these kind of shows, not for the sensationalism, but the fact that you need to know what's going on with your kids. We shouldn't be too quick to write our children off. Neither should we be too quick to just assume that we know what's wrong. You know, we should be able to look at our children and think that behavior has changed, and at least start to ask questions, or at least go into observe mode. And also this thing of looking at people and thinking, oh, Jane's too pretty to be abused.
Just judging.
On stupidness.
Ignorance.
You know, of no real substance and meaning. And I think as parents...
It's still going on. That's the sad thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I ran a charity for a few years. I don't know if you know, I ran a charity called Who Will Hear My Cry, raising awareness on rape, child abuse, and domestic violence. And some of the things that I became exposed to, because I used to run the charity here and in Ghana, Nigeria, and America, and other places. I had clients, you know, we had clients all over. But what it was, some of the things and the barriers, because, okay, in simple language, because it's 2022, we've done a great job in making people believe that we are in a civilized society and we really do fight this canker of sexual abuse. On the surface, this is what we tell people, that the authorities do what they have to do, and once you report it, you're safe. I'll let you elaborate on what really happens nowadays. Guys, if you're watching, please do share, and I'll read your comments in a second.
Yeah, I mean, when I was 17, I bumped into a teacher that I had at school when I was at high school. And at the time I was 17, I was homeless. And I bumped into him, and he said hi, and how are you doing, etc. And obviously I wasn't doing very well at the time. But he said to me, he knew there'd been more going on in my life. And when I was about 13, or maybe 13 or 14, I was in a lesson. I was in his class, and it was a class for children that didn't behave, basically. So, you know how they separate children out and they put the ones that don't behave in it? Yeah. So he was taking that class every week. And I must have said something in that class that raised alarm bells for him that I was being abused. Okay, so I think I described a sexual act that I wouldn't have known that much information about unless I'd actually been, you know, had it happen to me. So he heard this and he was concerned, and he took, like I say, he told me this when I was 17, that he went to the headmaster and said, look, I've got concerns that Jane has been abused, that this has happened to her because she mentioned it in the class and she could never have known this, the details of this, unless she was actually having this done to her. And the headmaster said to him, you need to ignore it and not mention it again. Okay.
Wow.
Well, I didn't know that at the time. And like I say, I found out about that years later. So the teacher had his hands tied and he had to just ignore it.
That must have been so hard.
Yeah. And finding that out, I mean, now when I think about it, that's really bad. Yeah.
You see, I think in this life, we all have choices. We have choices and we can decide to do the right thing or turn a blind eye. It just depends on how high a cost we want to pay. Like, for example, when I started my charity, I didn't start the charity because of my own personal story. I started the charity because there was a girl in Ghana, she wasn't even here, that accused a very prominent media person in Ghana of raping her. And the whole freaking nation was saying she was a whore, she was a this, she was a that, she was a gold digger. And you see, for me, I had just decided to like start my YouTube, whatever, because I was doing this other thing that was all fun and, you know, so lovely, you know, the Fit Chicks Club. It was all about glam, keeping fit and all of that. I hadn't planned to do any of this kind of stuff. So what then happened was, because so many women would contact me about their fitness journey, and maybe some would say I'd been a victim of domestic violence or abuse or what have you, I thought, okay, let me just do some videos that can speak to the masses, as opposed to the women I'm having to frantically answer individually in my messenger. So just when I was about to launch that, this case celeb happens in Ghana. And I'm thinking, okay, so I think my community needs a bit of education on what rape is and what it isn't. And location certainly does not determine whether somebody is guilty or innocent of rape, because a girl went to his hotel room. Cut a long story short, I put up that video and I'm being hounded by the family. Reported it to the police. He got arrested. I was told they were going to kill me. All sorts of nonsense went on. I was getting called to do interviews all over. But when everything died down, I'm missing a crucial part of the story. Going back, I had women and girls contacting me, alleging that they had been a victim of this person. Now, there were certain things I can't go into now because it's your show and not mine, that there's certain, just like in your case, there were certain things that you wouldn't have known unless it had been done to you. Now, bearing in mind, I had heard different stories from different women. And these were women that were completely unconnected, telling the same story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I had a choice at that point. I could have said, whoa, too much drama, let it go. But I didn't. It doesn't make me a hero. It makes me somebody that wants to be able to sleep at night. He eased his conscience a little bit because he met you and was able to ease his conscience by confessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't want to have to ever be that person, knowing what I knew from different quarters and just keeping quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's something that we should make sure that we are never that person that enables a child to be violated and victimized just because we don't have the balls to say anything.
No. It's very difficult in organisations. Even when I worked for the NHS, and I found myself in a situation where one of my clients I felt was in an abusive situation with an NHS therapist, and I reported it. Okay. And my manager was supportive, but she went to her manager, and her manager rang me and told me I had to drop it.
Wow.
If I didn't drop it, I'd likely lose my job. Now, she didn't say it as black and white as that, but
yeah, we get the language, yeah.
Yeah, I had to drop it and not mention it again, what this therapist had done to my client. So that was within the last 10 years. Yeah.
I think it's a societal thing. I think we've created the illusion of protection, but we still have to say something. I mean, I went through, horrendous bullying, victimization, sexual harassment in one of the local authorities that I worked in. And when I was leaving and I contacted the leader of the council, who happened to be a woman, I actually had to use an alias. I couldn't even use my real name. I called myself Jane Goldberg. I thought, well, if I sound like a middle-class Jewish woman, maybe they will give me some attention. I thought, I'm not rocking up as myself because that's just not going to work. So I sent the email to her. But then the moment I mentioned that it was sexual harassment by one of the heads of service, everything died a death. Everything died a death. For the first time in my life, I was on sleeping tablets, panic attacks. I went through absolute hell. And then when the House of Commons had that whole thing going on about, people being raped in the House of Commons, I contacted her again and I said, do you remember me? I came to you and you turned me away.
Yeah.
She couldn't apologize enough because at that point she realized, shoot, I could go to the papers, which I think I threatened that I was going to do. Yeah. And she said that she would meet me. She didn't know who I was until I met her at Holiday Inn in Stratford. And I sat there and I wept. And this was like 4 years later. So this thing of, sexual inappropriateness, because that just, it just covers a wider spectrum, happens so much. And we are so poor at being able to protect people.
Yeah, we are. And it's still happening. As I say, It's still happening. I've seen it in the services I've worked in. So I know it's going on. And also a lot of workers, they don't want to put in a safeguarding concern because they don't want to open a can of worms, which gives them more work to do. I've seen that happen.
It's terrible. I'm going to read some comments. In fact, let me see where it's easier for me to read from. Let me read from here. Okay, so I know, Rudolph, thank you so much for your comments. Shirley Ann, thank you for being on here. Watching from Monroe, I feel lovely. Thank you for being on here as well. Guys, Nana Marilyn, thank you. Where are you watching from, Nana Marilyn? You said that it keeps freezing, so I hope that it's working now. Rudolph says, first time watching your show, but loving it already because it's not just content, but relevant topic. Big up yourself. Thank you, my darling. And I've got a few comments from you, so I'm just going to read them through. As an African dad, it had to take my South American wife for me to understand that culture is not everything. It's all about real understanding and being on a level. Hence why I'm not real understanding. Hence why I'm not only enjoying, but understanding you guys' point of view. Thank you so much. And you see, that's the thing about us being open to unlearn some of the things that we have learned. Back in the day, beating your children was no big deal.
Yeah.
Child does something, you give them a good wallop. What do you do when your child reaches a point where the beating is no longer effective, or that child is getting bigger and taller than you?
They become immune to that. Yeah.
Say again.
They become immune.
They do
to that. So how
and
far
angry.
You go? Yeah.
Exactly.
The more
you can't kill your child.
Just having a firm voice might work, and then you hit them, and then having a firm voice doesn't work anymore, and then hitting them doesn't work anymore.
Where do you go?
They become immune to it. So where do you go?
But then what you then would have created is an angry child, a child that is full of rage. And then when they are old enough to express that rage unfiltered, that's when we have problems. And that's why we have these grown children in our workplaces, in our environments, that we are trying to figure out why they are the way they are. Well, this is the product of some of the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah, you can't beat in respect.
No, you can't. Try telling my community that.
Yeah, you
We
can't.
tend to think that just because you've beaten the child and the child won't do it again, that you've solved the issue. You haven't. They will do it again when you're not watching, and be smarter and more savvy in not getting caught the next time.
Yeah, because they're scared of getting caught, so they're more safe.
So that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Let me see. And there's something else that I want to ask you, Jane, in just a second. Rudolph says, very true. African parenting is so different. We were discussing this just 4 hours ago. So many important parts of this video that I wish I could extract to post on TikTok, but it's too difficult, I think you said. Monica says, everyone with children should be aware of the signs. And I think Monica is talking about the signs of abuse. And I think we'll go through some of that when we finish. Yeah. Rudolph says, I promised I was going to watch this full time. Trust me, I'm not disappointed. That's good to hear. So please do share it, which I think you have. Monica says parents turn a blind eye because of the shame. That's so wrong. And we will get onto that with Jane in just a second. I'm going to skip a few. Sierra Leonean Pearl says, I remember being on the hospital bed. Oops. I remember being on the hospital bed at age 12 years after being incurring physical abuse, swollen face because I accused a family of sexual abuse and he retaliated with physical harm. And my African aunt standing at the edge of my hospital bed said to me in front of family, why do you have the habit of accusing people of abusing you? Look at what you have done to you. Look at what you have done to yourself. Look what you've done to yourself now. No support. I am a child protection social worker today. And thank God that I'm in a field that safeguards. Do you know what? I feel like crying. I cannot imagine what that would have been like. And I'm so sorry that has been your experience. And, it's just wrong. It's so wrong.
The family in general, they want to cover it up, you see. The family, my family wanted to cover it up. Yeah.
Who was the person that was abusing you, Jane, in your situation?
It was my uncle. Yeah, it was my uncle, but he was known within the family. He had done it to other members of the family, but it was always covered up.
And you've seen, that's the thing. If somebody would just take a stance and somebody would open their mouth, you save other people. How is it that you're within a family that you're known to be a paedophile, but you're allowed to continue to be a paedophile because of shame? Yeah. How does that work?
It wasn't allowed to be spoken about in the family. Everybody knew what he was, but nobody was allowed to say anything because of the shame. Because of the shame.
That's terrible. Terrible. And the effect of this on your life, because you mentioned that it then led you into prostitution and drugs. How was that transition made? What was it?
Yeah, when you go through a lot of abuse, one of the things you can become very sexualized. Yeah. So those sexualized behaviors, it kind of becomes you're like brainwashed almost. Yeah. That's all you know, those behaviors. And you can become very sexualized. And that's a real obvious sign as well that there's something going on. If a child is acting in a sexualized way. Yeah. And I became very sexualized, acted in a very sexualized way. And that led to me going down the route of, I suppose, what happened with me, I detached my body.
Yeah, it's very common.
Yeah, so what was happening to me wasn't happening to me. It was happening to my body. Yeah. Right. So my body just became like a piece of meat. That's how I thought of it. Right. And I think it's the only way I could get through it. So when I was about 15, I was actually put into a residential home for disturbed children. Okay. Because of my behavior. Anyway, so I was put in the home, which was horrendous. I mean, and I'd say all of the children in there had been abused. Okay.
Right. I mean, it's so common.
Yeah. And there was abuse going on in the home. Yeah. So you go from one abusive situation to another. Oh. I was in there just a few months and I ran away. So I ended up on the streets. And that then, to survive, I started to sell myself, which I could switch off to because that's what I'd done.
To get through the abuse.
Yeah, I'd always done that. So I could detach and just sell my body because that's basically what I've been doing anyway.
It's so interesting you should say this because many years ago, I remember doing, as I used to have another show, but I wasn't as committed. I got lazy and tired. But that was called Speak Now, Forever Hold Your Peace. And I remember doing a piece on abuse and explaining that, again, in our society, and in many societies actually, if a woman sleeps around, she's just a slut. There's no backstory. She's just
promiscuous.
Yeah. I mean, promiscuous is a posh word. Do you know what I mean? You're then labeled and you're written off.
Yeah.
When 9 times out of 10, there is a backstory. And I remember explaining to people that when a child has been sexually abused, what they come to realize is that they possess something that they can give in exchange for something else. So that sex becomes like a bartering system. It's like, oh, okay, well, now I will give you, but I will take this.
Yeah.
So it becomes transactional. Why? Because they have had a lifetime of being groomed for that position.
That's exactly that. That is 100% what
there
happens.
You go.
You become groomed from a very young age, and your brain, you are brainwashed. That's it. Into what they've made you become.
And it's about survival. So then that child then is like, well, then okay, I will give you. So in a roundabout way, that child says, well, now I am in control. I'm not really being exploited because it's another avenue 100%. To take back that. Jane, I get it.
That's exactly what I did. Yeah.
I so get it.
You feel like you are using these men, you're taking some control back.
Yeah. From what was taken from you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually became a dominatrix.
Yeah.
For some time. And that again, I felt like I was totally in control then of these men.
But people need to hear these conversations because, again, as a society, we are so quick to label and write off people whose lived experience we have never lived or ever given people the space to say, this is what it's like. And by so doing, I believe what we do is we shut down people to suffer longer than they should and empower perpetrators to be more powerful longer than they should, just because we're not listening. That's all. It's just because we're not listening. We see a woman, oh, she's a prostitute. Oh, then.
Yeah.
That's why I get angry.
Led.
This is why I get angry with some of our women who want to now say, oh, a prostitution is an honorable profession. It's like, shut the hell up. Don't be stupid. Because out of those 100 women, you may find maybe 1.5, that is happy being a prostitute because ever since she was a little girl, she's always wanted to sell her body. It's absolute rubbish.
Yeah.
The fact that woman will say, no, I'm fine, it's survival. And if we are so tone deaf to the women that are in that space, then we would have done them a grave injustice all over again in the name of political correctness and being modern and what have you. And sometimes I think we women just like, really, it's like, come on.
Yeah, it's correct. There's always a story. And you definitely become like numb. You become numb to that.
You have to.
Yeah, you have to become numb. Or you normalize it. You normalize the abuse to survive. So then as an adult, you're numb to it. It's become so normal.
How were you able, or were you able, to move forward from the abuse? How were you able to not allow the abuse to define the rest of your life?
Yeah, so I don't live it day in, day out. I mean, I do have PTSD, which I've had, therapy for quite years. And I do still have triggers. I still do have nightmares. It's still there. But I'm quite determined not to just live my life as an abused person. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to let it just stop my life. I want to move forward. I want to have good times. I don't want just to sit in the house and just think about the abuse day in, day out. That just isn't me. And I know that's like, for some people, they can't, you know, that's it. They haven't probably had the right help. Yeah. And I think until you get the right, it's very hard to get the right help. I was very lucky that eventually, I mean, I'm talking after years and years and years, I got a good psychologist who helped me. And I saw for 7 years, you know, and she did a lot of psychotherapy with me. And it helped detangle it all. And it helped to understand why I behaved how I did. That helps if you know why you behave.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think why I believe it helps as well is when you've been told, because essentially when you're labeled as a child, what essentially is being said to you is that it's your fault. You are the problem. So when you can come to a place where somebody creates that space for you and allows you to work through your thoughts and your trauma and realize, actually, I am not the wrong, I'm not wrong in this situation. That in itself is a form of healing.
Yeah.
Because you're not having to blame yourself. You're a bad child. It's your fault.
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
about understanding why you behaved as you did.
Yeah.
You know, why you think how you do. You know, it's like with the sexualized behavior. Why?
Yeah.
Why you do that? Why you think like that?
You know, because society will just label you and say, oh, Jane is just X, Jane is just Y, without thinking, hold on a minute. You know, I mean, I look back now as an adult, and I look back at some of the girls in school that were labeled, or they were so like, I remember there was a girl, I'm obviously not going to call her name, but I remember we used to go for these summer classes back in Ghana. That girl would sleep with anything.
Yeah.
I mean, even the tutor, she was making advances at him. Pretty girl. She was only like, we were only like 15.
Yeah.
And I look back now and I'm thinking, my gosh, what a failure, you know, in terms of society, completely failing this young woman. Because with the knowledge that I have now, seeing somebody like that, we would have a conversation. And I would not be asking what's wrong with you. And I think we should, it's a phrase that we should stop using. We should just ask people what happened and can I help? Yeah. I think that alone, oh my God, I think it would make a massive difference to people.
Yeah. I think the hard part is getting the help though. I know here in the UK, there literally is no help. On the NHS, I'm talking free help.
Yeah, the NHS is just, I mean,
obviously if you pay privately, but not everybody is in that situation.
You're absolutely right.
So I'd say the majority of people that have suffered this kind of trauma, they just can't afford to pay privately. So they rely on the NHS to get help, but there is no help.
And I don't even know why the therapists on the NHS have bothered to even, you know, go into that profession, because the number of horror stories that I hear of people that are counselled by NHS therapists,
terrible.
There are more horror stories than success stories.
You're very lucky if you get it. I was very lucky.
Yeah, but after 7 years, wasn't it?
I was actually, you know, when I started the therapy, I was allowed 6 months, they told me. And then it got extended to 12. And then the psychologist I had said, no, I'm not discharging you. Right? And she kept it going for 7 years. That's unheard of. But I was extremely lucky.
You were blessed.
She was very good. She understood trauma.
Yeah.
More than any other therapist, counsellor, whatever I've ever spoke to. She really understood trauma. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be as functional as I am now, I don't think.
Yeah. This is huge. Let me just read Sierra Leonean Pearl's comment. And before I do, guys, if you're watching via Facebook, you will see that there is an icon there to send stars. And what stars enables me to do is be able to put up this kind of content, pay for the subscription and stuff like that, because I don't get paid. This is all free of charge. So I would like to invite you to send some stars, as little as 89p. You know, if you're feeling really generous this November evening, please do send some financial support to your girl, so that I can keep putting out content like this, which you know and I know is super, super, super important. So I'll be really grateful.
Yeah.
Say again, darling.
Very important.
Yeah, it is.
Going.
It is very important, because, you know, not everybody will have these kind of conversations. We live in an era now where it's sensationalism, just nonsense, you know, who's had a butt injection, who's sleeping with who. I could put out that kind of content. Not interested. Not interested. I'm so not interested. I've changed the format of this show, which has actually reduced my viewers, because I'm doing it through StreamYard. I have over 14,000 followers on my personal page. I could get on them and do it directly, and I'd have maybe 200 people watching. But I want to do things properly for the right reasons, so people do what they need to do, and that is listen and learn and make changes within their communities. So I'm not.
You know what, the way you put it across is so well.
Thank you so much.
It really is.
That's really, really helpful to hear from somebody that has been through the experience. And yeah, it's important. We have to be able to speak in a language that people can understand. I remember, bless you, because I remember doing this some years back, and then there was a lady, for some reason, that just started copying all my content, and I was angry. Not because she was copying the content, but when she started to talk about sexual abuse, she then said something that I had never said. And she said, look, if you're married, you must tell your husband that you've been abused so he can support you. And I'm like, are you dumb? In our community, are you thick? Why would you do that? And this is why it's so important that people just remain authentic and in their lane. This kind of conversation is not for everybody, you know, so bless you. Let me read Sierra Leonean Pearl's comment. She says, my first experience of sexual abuse was at age 8, when I first came on holiday to England with my mother's younger sister's husband, who I was left with to babysit whilst the adults went out to a wedding or party. Came on a holiday and returned to Africa having been sexually abused. I remained the black sheep of the family in the minds of some family members, because I grew up blowing the trumpet and shaming them. Don't need those individuals in my life at all, and happily detached. Oh, Sierra Leonean Pearl, you are one of the best ones. She's strong. And I'm glad, yeah, there's people like you and her that you're showing people again what's possible. You know?
Yeah, that must have been hard to do.
Very, especially in our community.
Yeah, very difficult. And she's got consequences from it because the family.
Yeah. And I think that's what people are mostly afraid of, the consequences, you know, being ostracized, being cut off. It's like not everybody can, you know, not everybody
can't deal with that, you know, so that's really strong.
Hold on, so this thing is asking me to do something. Okay, cool. All right, I think there's a stars party going on. So if you want to send some stars during the stars party, please do. That's new. I haven't seen that before. Facebook keep changing stuff. Anita Agri says, hi, Anita. She says, major kudos to you, Jane, for sharing your heart-wrenching story. I work with young people in residential care, and she is bloody good because she's a personal friend of mine. In residential care with similar background histories, taboos are broken through communicating within important forums such as this. Thank you so much, Anita. Let me just read some more comments. Soa Brony says she's blessed. Ria Roo has sent a list, I think at crowdjustice.com, case social worker takes counsel to court. Thank you. I'm going to read that when I'm done. Ruda says, all I've learned from this live is listen to your children and take it serious. Do you know what? In a nutshell, yeah, you're right. Rita Emma, thank you for watching. Afolabi, thank you for watching as well. If you've made a comment, maybe I should try and get it on here, because sometimes not everything shows up on there. Thank you so much for those that have sent stars. Afolabi, thank you. Adele, thank you for watching as well. Rita, thank you for sending stars. Evelyn, thank you for sending stars as well. She's sent stars 3 weeks in a row. Thank you so much. In fact, you've always sent me stars. Wengwei, thank you for being on here. And let me see if I've missed anyone. Alana Stewart, thank you for watching as well. Who else is on here? Pauline Sharp, thank you for being on here. Lydia Fiawonu, I hope I pronounced your name properly. Sometimes my pronunciation can be a bit pants. Millie C, how are you doing? Sade Eduro, thank you for being on here as well. Guys, if you are watching, do share. Glenn Goodwin, thank you, guys. Omar Steed. If I haven't mentioned you, I will mention you next week. So that's an invitation for you to come back to us. So I know we've gone a little over, but I do kind of owe them some time.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we were a bit late. I was a bit late joining today.
Yeah, because of the technical and it was just a bit of a nightmare. But Jane, tell me a little bit about how you managed to get to where you are and started to work within the mental health field. What was it that made you do that?
I have to think back now. Well, after I had my children and they got a bit older, I started doing voluntary work in family support. So I actually started doing family support work as a voluntary thing. And I did a lot of training around family support. Yeah. And that touched on everything. So that touched on mental health, on abuse, on, poverty, on, all kinds of things that I supported families with. Yeah. And I had quite a few cases that involved safeguarding. And I did a lot of training. And then I did some more voluntary work with various different organisations just to get experience.
Sure.
From that, I did an MVQ3 in health and social care. And then I got employed as, well, I was still doing the family support, but I was employed as a sexual health worker, which is another subject we could discuss.
Listen, let me stop you there. Jane will be coming back to this show to talk about her job as a sexual health worker. Oh my gosh. The conversation that we had.
Yeah, interesting.
Like seriously, especially for the women, you need to watch. Jane, definitely. If I do a series 7, you have to come back and talk about that show. And I'll just give them a little hint of what it's about. Or should I?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I don't even know where to start. So obviously Jane and I were on the phone for like forever. I think my battery died is how we ended up getting on the phone.
We can talk.
We can talk. And Jane was telling me that part of her job as a sexual health worker was to give out condoms. And where was it? Was it in Hampstead?
Where what, sorry?
Where did you give out the condoms for people to practice safe sex?
On the cruising grounds. And which I was explaining to you is where men go to have sex with men in the open, in the fields, in the woods.
Yeah. And they have a place like that in Hampstead Heath.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
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 The bit that blew my mind was where Jane said to me, the number of straight men who go there on their way home to their wives. And and the conversation just basically went in the direction of women need to know if their partner is actually gay. Now, the conversation we had, and we digressed a little bit. I've always felt that this was, I'm not going to say anything. They're going to have to just watch that show.
I think we're going to have to wait and do this again.
Yeah, we have to wait and do it because
it's interesting.
Okay.
It's an interesting.
Back on track.
Yeah. So where was I? Yeah, I got the job as a sexual health worker.
Yeah.
And I was doing family support as well at the time. As voluntary still. I then moved on to work for a housing associate, actually Stonham. I don't know if you've heard of Stonham, but I worked for them, housing association. But I worked in the family support role, this family support service. So I worked for them, again, touching on all issues, safeguarding, drug and alcohol, mental health, everything, poverty, domestic violence, a lot of domestic violence actually I work with. So all the time I'm just gaining experience in these kind of services. And then from there, eventually I went into mental health. I worked in mental health, and I stuck with that then. So again, the mental health, though, again, you're just working with the drugs and alcohol, the domestic violence, you know, everything's going on, abuse, trauma. So I worked for the NHS for the community mental health team. And then I moved on from there to work for another housing association, which had a mental health support service. And that was my role, mental health support worker.
You see, I've always believed that if you treat, and I think I put this on my Facebook not too long ago, if you treat the trauma within children, you would drastically reduce the adult with mental health problems.
Oh,
you agree with
that? This is the thing I've been saying for years, you know,
yeah.
And I saw it time and time again. I worked with a family where the children had been abused, and there was those children, no support, no psychological support whatsoever. They may have had a social worker, but
you did see for an hour.
Yeah, there was no help, therapy for those children that had been abused. So what happens when they get older?
They end up
mental health problems. And then the system is under strain, mental health services, because we need to be dealing with it when the children, not when they're adults.
But the thing is, I don't believe that we are so stupid that we don't know that we need to make the investment in the children. And I sincerely believe there are very sinister reasons as to why we do not give the children the support that they need. It is beneficial to whoever it is within society that we have people
early intervention.
Yeah. There's a reason. If you study social science, it will make more sense. How
100% early intervention is so important. And I forgot to mention in all that, actually, I worked as a contact officer, which you're probably aware of what that is. But it was a slightly different role, because not all the children were removed from the families. It was that they weren't allowed to see one of the parents, usually the father, due to allegations of sexual abuse or drug, alcoholism, etc., etc. There were some safeguarding concerns. So I did contact with these guys and their children, and many of them were paedophiles. I had to sit through that contact with them and write reports for CAFCAS. So
that must have been tough.
Yeah. It was interesting. It was interesting. I mean, I remember one contact session that I did. I had to stop it halfway through, because the guy was inappropriately touching his kids in front of me. He couldn't even control himself.
Wow.
I know. It's like he didn't even realize what he was doing was wrong.
But again, why would the powers that be allow the contact? Because I know of a case. And that's why I'm saying that there are different things that come into play here: money, power, status. Because I know of a case where, and I would change things very slightly, where this man, who happens to be a lawyer, very wealthy, admitted in family court to inappropriately touching his daughter, and yet was still granted visitation rights. And even though he admitted this in family court, no criminal charges were brought against him, even though the mother was insisting that he should be charged. But because of his status, nothing.
Well, this guy, actually, he was a university lecturer, and so was his wife.
I'm telling you, it's mad. I mean, gosh, Jane, we could talk for hours, but it's a lot. And I think that, you really do have to come back. I mean, I know we've got that other show, and for me, this feels like we're just getting started.
Scratching the surface.
Yeah, literally just scratching the surface. There's just so much. And I think the takeaway, because obviously I've gone way over, the takeaway I think really is for parents to listen to your children and watch for change in behavior. And I hope you will never see it, but I'm just saying these are the things as parents that we need to be aware of.
Look for the signs.
Look for the signs, and the signs are your child's behavior changing from, your child. So if your child is very outgoing and what have you, and all of a sudden they're very quiet. I'm not saying that every single situation means they are being sexually abused. What I'm saying is, when you see that change, that is your cue to have a conversation with your children.
Looking at professionals as well, because they don't always spot it.
You see, with those professionals that are in a profession that they have no interest.
Yeah,
they're collecting a paycheck.
I think sometimes they don't want to see it.
I think because sometimes what is required for them to put it right, like you're saying, and I know that we spoke, they're like, don't pay any attention to it, or if you are being victimized, it's like, well, it's not happening. People find it very difficult to step out of what does not directly affect them. And we have people in positions where they do hold the title and don't do anything with that title. But as parents, at the very least, our children must be rest assured that we will be their advocate. If you see your child misbehaving, the answer isn't to go and get a stick and start beating the child. The answer is not to just write the child off because they're
punish the child. No, because that's just going to make it 10 times worse.
Go into observe mode. And when you create space for your child, the question you should be asking is, what happened? Not what is wrong with you.
Why?
Because there's
why
wrong
are you this way?
Yeah.
Why? There's always a why.
There's always a why.
Yeah.
It's just whether we're ready to hear it.
Yeah.
So Jane, it's been such a pleasure having you. We really need to do this again.
Yeah, definitely.
Most definitely. But thank you for sharing your experience, for sharing your story. You're most certainly going to be coming back, because that other story blew my flipping mind.
I know. It's interesting
subject. It's an eye-opener.
It's an eye-opener.
I mean, if I hadn't heard it from someone like you, and I'd heard it from just a regular person, I'd have been like, oh, shut up. I'd be like, just be quiet. So I'm going to just really laugh
again. Yeah.
So we need to, because I'm still traumatized. I think.
Yeah,
I really am. I'm still traumatized. We need to. So, thank you
for having me on. Thank you.
Pleasure. Absolute.
Thanks
pleasure.
for everybody for watching.
Yeah, no, you've really opened up the conversation for people, to have, and it's important that
it makes somebody think. If it makes somebody think, then it's worth it.
Absolutely, and you're doing a great job. If you want to post the link to your book after we come offline, please do that again so that people can read your book. And do you want to tell us what the book is called and where they can find it?
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon. The title is Can't Anyone Help Me? And it's actually under the name of Jackie Holmes, because at the time I used a different name.
Yeah, and we understand why.
Yeah.
So brilliant. Thank you so much, Jane.
Thank you again. Take care.
Ciao, and we will talk. Probably ring you after.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers, my darling. God bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye. So that was the lovely Jane Bodie. Just an amazing person, and she's done so much. And I think what is so admirable for me to witness is her desire to just give back. And I think that we could all learn something from Jane and how she is getting her life back to where it needs to be. And like I said, the takeaway is really, we need to listen to our children, and we need to be able to spot the signs. When your child is acting out, it's not just because they're bad and because they're disrespectful. So do try your utmost best to have a conversation with your child and ensure that you create that space for them to be able to speak to you again, if their grades drop at school, they're no longer interested in school where they were, you know, really happy to be in school before. That is another sign that that may be indicative that something is going on. Like I said, it may not necessarily be abuse. It could be bullying. It could be anything apart from the fact that children do also suffer from mental health issues. So we have a responsibility to make sure that we are always in tune with our kids and able to, you know, be there for them in that way. And as I said, children do not have the ability to articulate what is going on with them. They're never going to sit you down at the age of 6 or 7 or 8 or even 11, 12 and say, Mum, Dad, well, guess what? Uncle so-and-so has been touching me inappropriately. But what you will likely have is a child that's very angry, that may lash out at the drop of a hat, is falling ill. And those are the obvious signs. So just be aware, be in tune, be concerned, and be involved. And if you do that, I can promise you, you will not go wrong. So I'll just quickly read the last few comments and I shall be letting you go because we have gone a little bit over. Okay, Sakura, thank you so much. Cyrilian Pearl, thank you for watching. And Monica Martini Janky, thank you. Faye Clinton, thank you for being on here. Dutchy says, this country's support system is there to protect these kinds of people and does not protect children. You would be so surprised what goes on. When I was running the charity, it just opened up a whole new world to me, that what really goes on, and it was shocking. Rudolph, thank you so much as well. Thank you. Monica says, thanks, Dilys, for another awesome show. Sarah Brennan says, thanks for the opportunity to learn. And I think that Shirley, let me look on here because I can see. Sarah, thank you for sending stars as well. Let me see the comments. Ooh. Let me see who, because somebody wrote facts, because on here it would just say Facebook user for some people. So, oh, it was Richmond. Oh, Richmond was on the show. He was our very handsome policeman from America. Oh, so that's great. Thank you very much, Richmond, for watching. Guys, I am going to love you and leave you. So thank you for being with me this Sunday, watching Dark Innocence with my lovely guest, Jane Bodie. So guys, there is going to be the link to her book in the comments box. Please do buy it and do something like, you know, find a charity that supports children who've been sexually abused and, you know, give them something. You don't want to give me stars for the content, no problem, but just give something, you know. And yeah, Jane has just posted the link to her book, which you can find on Amazon. So that would be great. And guys, just before I go, I'm going to be doing a workshop called Rewriting History on the 7th of January. And I will be giving you the details. It will be in central London, and it will be a workshop that will help us to identify one big win that we want to be able to achieve in 2023. And I will be that person that will be able to show you how to do that. It will be a great networking opportunity. Those of you that haven't met me in person before, it would be lovely for you to come down to have a VIP, either breakfast or lunch. We have a wonderful day together doing this workshop. So I will give you more details because we're late. I don't want to keep you on too much longer. But guys, have a wonderful Sunday. Have a wonderful week. God bless you all. And thank you for watching Speak with Dilys today. Take care. Bye-bye.